Well, tell me about adding fat to the diet or how much fat. People seem to either think they shouldn't have any fat or they know they're supposed to have fat, but the wrong kind of fat. So let's chew the fat.
Okay, yeah, and we can have many, many discussions on fat because there are
Okay.
a lot of facts about this. Uh, so the average person needs just biologically 60 to 80 grams of fat a day,
Which is a
and that
cup
is
of fat. That's a cup of peanut butter, Jennifer.
well, we talked about it's like 16 spoonfuls of peanut
Which is a
butter.
cup. It's a
Okay,
lot of
so a
peanut
cup of
butter.
you don't have to eat it all in peanut butter,
You might have to.
um, but people just assume there's fat in their food and there's fat here and there, and it must be all over the place, so that they should just be really careful and not add fats to things. But if you aren't adding fats to things, and because we're so fat scared in this
Right.
culture, that you don't choose things that would naturally have fat in them, like cookies or muffins or croissants or biscuits. I mean, most people don't eat foods that naturally have fat in them, even though they believe, like, oh, my bread must have fat. It doesn't have fat. And your spaghetti doesn't have fat. And, like all these things, they don't have fat in them. So you're not getting it from your food. And so if you're not adding it, I mean, I would say probably the majority of people who come to me with major weight concerns, maybe they're, feel like they're overweight and need to lose a lot of weight. Anybody across the spectrum, I have to get them to add fat. I don't think I've had one client yet who was eating enough fat upon starting.
Okay, so when you're saying adding fat, you're talking about putting butter on bread or putting
Yeah,
butter in vegetables or
yeah.
I'm
I
gonna
mean,
suck on butter,
it's not
eating those little round green things,
big.
avocados.
Yeah, you need 16 sources. So let's say you had a biscuit and a croissant and a muffin. So you could kind of say that was three. And I really wouldn't want a person to count over time. It's just to give a visual of what would be kind of appropriate.
Well, you need 16 sources of fat a day or 16 tablespoons.
Well, 16 tablespoons, but the tablespoon could be included in one of these foods that has fat in it. So if you do eat cookies, if you had a certain number of cookies, that may have the equivalent of one of those tablespoons of fat in it. So 16 is assuming that, most of the time people say 8 added fats. However, my experience has been that's assuming you're getting half your fat from your other foods, and most people are not. Sorry.
Well, I guess I'm really not clear. So when you say added fat, you mean you're eating something and you add fat to it. Is that what you mean?
Right. Butter added to bread. But a food with fat in it would be biscuits or muffins or cake or something like that. Do you understand what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah, I guess if you had a hamburger, there's fat in the hamburger.
There could be some fat in the hamburger.
Yeah.
There would be fat in French fries and some in chips. I mean, it's just important that people don't overestimate, because people will be like, yeah, I have fat. I had fries on Tuesday. I mean, that is not sufficient. Like, if the one time this week you had fats, you're not eating enough fat. So, people need to be having foods with fat or adding fat to their foods, like on a super regular basis.
So is it true or not true that by eating if you eat fat, that it turns to body fat? That seems to be the theory, right?
I mean, I guess I don't think that anybody actually has
Yeah.
that theory. I just think that people
Oh,
believe that. That's not a scientific theory by any
well, but
means.
that's why they restrict fat in like low-fat food, so you don't have as much fat. I guess so it doesn't.
Right. I think
Right.
fats have a derogatory name, they get a bad rap because of their name. I do have something that we can post on the functions of fats. So fats do a whole bunch of things in your body. Your body needs fats. It can't make fats from scratch, really. So you have essential needs for them. That's why if you don't eat fats through the day, you're like thinking about food like crazy and really feeling like you want to binge on something delicious that has fat in it. Fats regulate hormones. Fats are the lipid part of the phospholipid layer that is the layer around every single cell in your body. Fats are in the myelin sheath, which is what coats all your neurons, so your impulses will move at a rapid rate. Your brain is 60% fat. So for all you fat haters out there,
Yeah.
small brain. um, hormones and mood regulation. So fat has like all these gazillions of things to do that are really important to survival
Okay.
before making you fat. Like is not its primary purpose is not to like make your life miserable. Fats have really important biological functions in your body. In fact, if you don't eat much fat, you're more likely to store what you do eat just because your body needs it so much and it thinks that it's never going to get it. So there's a whole, and then we can talk about this more later, but a whole loop in your body.
Oh, what loop? It blanked out.
Well, I said feedback, but that's not the name of it. I mean, when you're ready for it, I can introduce you to that.
Okay.
I'm sorry about these crazy dogs.
What's the dogs? You want to show them on TV?
Okay, here's Picasso.
Oh, yeah.
Hi. He talks like that.
Oh, yeah.
And here's Nina.
Oh, okay. They look trim.
Here or not in here. So.
Okay.
Do you want me to talk about the leptin feedback?
I think let's do it. Yeah, we're into fats, so.
Okay, so the leptin feedback cycle is a biological cycle where your fat cells actually release this hormone leptin depending on how much fat you're taking in. Oh my gosh, you are driving me so crazy. So crazy. Your fat cells release leptin depending on how much fat you're taking in. So if you're not taking in enough, the message is store, and crave. You know, like all you can think about is foods that are going to have that in them. You think about food all day long. You never feel satisfied. And then when you do eat something, your body's really holding on to it because it's afraid it's going to be thrifty, right, with the use of your fats if you're going to have all these famines.
So your body's holding on to the fat and craving the fat at the same time. So that's what you're saying, yeah.
Right. Okay. And then when you do eat a good amount of fats, like we see this in a lot of situations, but most people are familiar with the Mediterranean. But I don't want to make that the only example because it's also true of the Eskimos who eat polar bear fat and like, you know, the French, like all these people who have low rates of heart disease but have way higher intakes of fat. When you are eating enough fat, your body feels satisfied, doesn't think about food, and is able to use that fat more efficiently for the things it actually wants to do. It doesn't have to hold on to it because God knows when you'll eat something with fat in it again, you know?
Okay. It does seem like though eating lots of French fries and potato chips and makes you fat.
Yeah, see, I mean, the people I know that
yeah.
like they're fat, they don't eat those things because they're afraid of them. So, do you know anybody who is not overweight who eats fries and chips?
Who's not overweight? Yes.
Okay. And if you parked outside of a McDonald's and watched people go in and out, I mean, there's all shapes and sizes going in and out, correct?
Right.
And if you parked outside a Subway or some other place you think is so particularly more virtuous, would you see all shapes and sizes coming in and out of there?
Yes.
So if one food makes you skinny and one food makes you fat, 100% of the people going in either one of those places would be a certain body type, right? I mean, if food is the problem.
Right, no, you're right. If food is the problem, then it would be solved by now.
Well, if food is the problem, then everybody would be exactly the same. Everybody who consumes chips, everybody who consumes French fries would be, when you say, it seems like if you eat a whole lot of French fries or chips, you're going to be fat. If you eat a whole lot of just about anything, I guess, you might be having trouble because you're probably not listening to your cues at that point. That's probably an emotional eating situation. And you may be overweight, but you could be eating a whole lot of lean cuisines and it would still be an issue because it's not fats that cause overweightness. It's too much food in general, you know, compared to what your body needs.